There has always been a competition between nations for supremacy. The competition these days has moved into space exploration. The race is on as to which country can build the biggest and most powerful rocket ever, but no one seems ready for the new rocket which China is about to unveil to the space industry. Not long ago, it unveiled a new 800 meters tall rocket that has no similitude with anything that has ever been built. Absolutely phenomenal. What does China's new rocket offer? How will it be built, and what are China's expectations with it? Do you know the biggest rocket that is ever created? Well, the award is already won by a spacecraft still under construction, the Starship. The spacecraft being built and tested by SpaceX stands at 120 meters when put together and has a diameter of 9 meters, thanks to a set of more than 30 rocket engines. The Starship can generate enough thrust to lift about 150 tons of payload at once to orbit. You may be surprised, however, to learn that the first rocket to officially get to space was made by the Germans in 1944. It was the V2 rocket that crossed the Jarman line. The Federation and Orbic International defined this Jarman line as a point where space starts, but after World War II, V2 fell into the hands of the United States, the Soviet Union, and the UK. Over the next few decades, and as well as the start of the Cold War, which began as a nuclear arms race of superior ballistic missiles which later became a space race, the United States and the USSR tried to be the first in achievement and mastery of spaceflight. This drove the production of a lot of new and different rockets. However, the United States got the upper hand and started off with the production of different rockets. Eventually, the breakup of the USSR in 1991 transferred the production of Sylvia rockets to Russia or Ukraine, and later, both Europe using the European Space Agency and Japan accelerated their rocket development and design also. More countries, however, have now seriously entered the competition in the space race, including Iran, India, and China. Actually, China began rocketry research even before Sputnik was launched in 1957, although it was not until 1970 that the country had its first satellite launched into orbit. Since then, more than 400 missions have been launched by China, and all of them have used the Long March or changing family of rockets. The first rocket in the Long March family of rockets was the Long March 1. This rocket is a 98-foot or 30 meters long 3-stage rocket. It was successfully launched by China from Jiuquan in the Gobi Desert, where it took China's first satellite, Dongfang Hongwan, into orbit on 24 April 1970. This made the country launch its own satellite, and that day is now remarked as China's Space Day, celebrated annually. Also, China has the Long March 2C, which has an additional length of about 40 feet or 12 meters to the length of its predecessor. This rocket launched 8,490 pounds or 3,850 kilograms to low Earth orbit. The rocket has been launched over 50 times since 1982 when it made its debut. Other Chinese rockets include the Long March 2E with 4 side boosters in 3 stages and has the ability to put up 7,700 pounds or 3,500 kilograms into geosynchronous transfer orbit. The Long March 5B, which was specifically designed to launch China's 3 large, approximately 48,500 pounds or 22,000 kilograms space station modules into orbit from a specialty-built spaceport on Hainan Island. The Long March 7 2-stage rocket, which launched into the Tianzhou cargo spacecraft, which weighs 29,800 pounds or 13,500 kilograms, to the Tiangong space station. The Long March 9, which is the Chinese version of NASA's Space Launch System, which will be of help in the assemblage of the joint China-Russia International Lunar Research Station. Its payload capacity is up to 330,000 pounds or 150,000 kilograms. The Long March 11 is quite different from all others because it is a solid propellant rocket, being that it uses solid fuels. It does not require separate tasks for the propellant and the oxidizer, which makes it even cheaper and simpler. This rocket is about 68 feet or 21 meters tall and has the ability to launch at sea. Despite China's recorded achievements within its space program, it continues to dream even bigger. This next rocket clearly shows it has no fears taking on other spacefaring nations such as the United States. As a matter of fact, Beijing, China has set space exploration as a top priority in order to be able to compete. Currently, China is barred from use of the International Space Station, and as a result, it is building its own space station, built to last for a minimum of 10 years in orbit. Already, it has sent 3 astronauts to the station. Despite all China has done in space, however, it still does not yet compare to the next Chinese rocket. The rocket is a huge 800 meters tall rocket that makes everything before it look like dwarfs. It is actually not surprising that China is building a rocket as huge as this. The country is home to a great number of mega projects, from the most extensive bullet train to the most audacious road projects and skyscrapers built in a matter of days. To some people, this project may sound like just a fiction of science. The very idea of erecting a structure that is almost 1 kilometer long in space might most likely sound preposterous. However, Mason Peck, former NASA chief technologist, has warned that China should never be taken as though they are joking. While speaking, Peck stated that the idea in its entirety, off the wall, and the challenge is more of a question of engineering than it is of fundamental science. I think it is entirely feasible, Peck, now a professor of aerospace engineering at Cornell University, said. I would describe the problems here not as insurmountable impediments, but rather problems of scale, Peck added. It is important to put China's ambition into perspective here. The International Space Station, one of the most iconic inventions of humans, measures only 109 meters, and it was a product of collaboration between multiple countries. It, in fact, unites perennial enemies, the United States and Russia. Talking about cost, the International Space Station swallowed up about $150 billion. Then, imagine what China's 800-meter spacecraft will cost. In order to assemble all the modules, the ISS required about 30 missions, stretching it over a decade, and for China, it is a long-term play and something that will give a sense of purpose to the country's program for years to come. A lot of observers from the West may mistakenly wave off this idea as propaganda, but that will be nothing short of a huge mistake. In 2009, China published a report called The Roadmap 2050, which stated how it would become the world's leading spacefaring country by 2050, and today, we are all witnessing China gradually bringing its space plan to a reality. One important question there is, can China pull this project off? Well, answering the question, it is actually very difficult to say no, looking at the recent achievements the country has made in space. It has returned lunar rock samples to Earth for analysis, making it the third country behind the United States of America and Russia to do so. Also, it has landed its own rover on Mars, an achievement only the United States of America could brag about. Additionally, China also pulled off the world's first landing on the lunar far side, and as stated earlier, China is currently building the Tiangong space station, which has already become a habitation and rivals the old International Space Station. All that to a country with unreal seriousness about its space ambition. Let's see what you think of China's spacecraft in the comment section below.